Welcome back to TimeOut with the Sports Doctor podcast, where life, sports, and medicine intersect. We're very glad that you continue to support this podcast. You can get the information on any platform where podcasts are played, as well as getting the video content on YouTube. But if you want to just get one place to find all the content, go to my website at Dr.Derrick, and you will find everything on that website. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. So welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast. We have another very interesting guest. I actually got a repeat guest coming back, got medical student, fourth year medical student, Donavon Dahmer. So welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. I guess I did a good enough job on the first one to come back for a second round. So glad to be here once again.
Yeah. Well, you know, we got a special relationship. So I really wanted to catch up because, you know, it's funny when you came on the first time, I said I had to bring you back to talk about matching. And now that you've matched officially, congratulations on that. You know, so we won't talk about jumping to it too quickly, but congratulations. I know this has been something that you've been working towards since the first time I met you. So it's pretty awesome. I was able to catch up with one of my mentors over the weekend, and I just know the feeling of being able to just be in the same space with somebody who's helped you along the way. And mentorship has always been key for me, you know, getting it through undergraduate, getting into medical school, getting out of medical school, getting into residency. So anytime that I have the opportunity to mentor someone else, you know, I don't take it lightly. And I know the impressions that you can make on other people just by being present sometimes. So, you know, I'm really happy to have this relationship with you, and I really value it.
Thank you so much, man. I agree 100%. You know, I'm mentoring some students as well. And it's so great to see their growth. It's a blessing to see. So,
yeah. So I'm trying to think when you appeared in my office. You were going, let's see, you were probably a junior or senior in undergraduate.
right.
What's that, about 2019, 2018, something like that?
Yeah, I want to say around probably like 2017, 2018. I think I was a sophomore, maybe junior in college. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that point, just trying to figure out, you know, how to get into medical school and being strategic about it. And, you know, at that point, we thought we were going to make you into an orthopedic surgeon, but, you know, we put our best foot forward.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
We open up the doors. We even let you come work out with us in the morning, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You guys gave it a good effort, but man, ophthalmology just came in and just swept me off my feet.
Yeah. So what do you remember about the orthopedic rotation the most when you were with us? Does anything stand out to you?
Man, you know, I think the biggest thing is that, you know, just being in the clinic, I hadn't had a lot of exposure in the clinic to begin with, you know, being a first generation medical student, first generation physician. You know, that alone was a great experience. But I think just the way you guys worked as a team, I think that's the biggest thing that really left such an amazing impression on me, is the fact that, you know, the way you interact with your nurses, the way you interacted with Tony, the way you guys just worked together to be able to provide just the best care for your patients. That really stuck with me. And I was like, man, I want to be like Dr. Burgess, because literally everyone around you had great things to say about you. You know, they didn't say you were some mean, grumpy surgeon. They were like, man, he's a great guy to work with. So I think just everyone's attitude and everyone's ability to work as a great team was the biggest thing that I left, you know, leaving with, that overall impression.
Yeah, and I appreciate that compliment. But you know, you were different when you showed up. I remember the first day you came, you had your notepad, you were taking notes. You know, we gave you the little gray jacket to wear. You remember the gray jacket? So I mean, you presented as a professional from day one, and you were always very business-like, and you always asking questions and thinking about kind of the next step, which is very impressive, which, you know, worked out for you very well, because even going to med school, you had multiple offers, right? You had, I remember joking to you about the bidding wars over scholarships for you, which is not something that's very usual. So that's awesome to see that. One thing that stands out to me when I think about when you were there, remember you got the challenge that time? Do you remember the challenge from one of my partners?
Oh, I did, and I kind of fumbled the challenge, but I learned from it. I learned
Yes,
from it.
yes.
Yeah.
Hey, talk to us about that.
Yeah. So let's see. I think it was Dr. Black. We were looking at an X-ray, and he pointed out, a specific bone and maybe a joint in the foot, and he was
Mhm.
saying, tell me why this portion of the foot is important. And I gave it a good guess, and he was like, okay, I like that, but I want you to look up Liz Frank joint and come back and kind of tell me about it. And I was like, okay, I'll make sure to do that. And then whenever I heard that he wasn't coming back until next Monday, I was like, oh, okay, I got some time. I can work on some other stuff. And then I saw him in the gym that Friday, and I was like, well, look at this. And he was like, all right, man, lay it on me. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. But man, that was such a good lesson because let me tell you something. Whenever an ophthalmologist, when he told me, hey, I want you to go up and read up on the specific disease, guess what I did? I went up and read on it. Next time, I didn't see him again until like 2 months later. And he was like, hey, tell me about that disease. And then I was ready because I had that experience with Dr. Black, with you and Dr. Black at the clinic. And that just kind of gave me that just that life lesson, like, hey, go read up on that when they say go read up on it.
Yeah, no, it's all about life lessons. And, is we do some things jokingly, but we know that they have a bigger purpose because you never know, like you said, if you're not prepared when you're on that interview, which the interview starts, from the application process. If you're
Yeah.
late in the application process, you're already getting put to the bottom. So these
Yeah.
small things that you take for granted sometimes are the decision making. It's not when you show up in your suit that the interview starts.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So, you had a very unique medical school career, so to speak. You entered medical school in what, 2020 or 2019?
2019. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a first year medical student, you encounter a pandemic. So you will probably be the official pandemic class, I guess. Do they talk about that now?
About just like how we had to experience that as
Yeah.
like
I
a
mean,
class.
from year one, right? Year
Yeah, year
one to
one.
pretty much currently, where things are kind of normalizing a little bit now, but you entered the work in medical school pre-pandemic, and now you'll graduate into kind of a post-pandemic world, which is different in medicine. And you really got to experience it all as a medical student, which is totally unique. Nobody had any preparation, professors, physicians, hospitals, no one had preparation for what you encountered. So talk to us about your experience.
Yeah, man. So, first off, I think that my school did a great job of just being able to get us the right material and in the right fashion where we could all kind of, work through it independently, but we still had good support. You know, I think they did a great job of doing that. But it was different, man. It was like medical school online. So it was like online school on steroids. And you really had to be disciplined because you couldn't go to class anymore. You had to create a plan. I mean, they did the best that they could with virtual class, but virtual class was still just so different. But luckily for me, I thrive on building my own schedule, being able to be self-disciplined. So I actually did fine. I was able to come home and be with my family, which was great. Having that support, but it was different, man. I think the last half year of first year medical school was pretty much online, and then second year was kind of like a hybrid version of medical school, which was better for people who wanted to go to class. But still, it was different. It was nothing that we had ever experienced before. So everyone, including, like you said, including the professors and the teachers and the attendings, this was all new territory for them. But one thing about medicine is that you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to just roll with the punches. So that's what we all did. To my knowledge, we didn't lose anybody during that time. We all were able to pass and do well. Obviously, there were some people who maybe had some bumps in the road, but overall, I would say that we all adapted and we all ended up doing pretty well in learning the material.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So you'll be talking to medical students years from now, about this experience, and they'll be studying it in
Exactly.
textbooks, but you lived it. So that's pretty awesome
Yeah,
experience. Even
it
though,
is.
it was rough and it was unique, but like you mentioned, you adapted and you probably became a better student because of it.
Amen. Definitely so.
All right. So, like you mentioned before, first generation medical student, soon to be first generation physician. But, we'd be remiss without talking about your great great grandfather, correct?
Yeah, great, great.
So, talk to me about the influence that he had on your life. Number one, did you even have a chance to meet him?
No, I didn't get a chance to meet him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but I heard
just
a lot
hearing
of stories.
stories. Absolutely. So just
Exactly.
talk to us about his life.
Yeah, man. So, he was just a trailblazer for, just the African American community in general, but especially, deep South Mississippi, in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, just the things that he did as a businessman, as a black businessman, was just stuff unheard of down here, owning his tractor, owning his own store. And a lot of people didn't really appreciated that. They saw that as a threat, because who's this black man, just trailblazing and just doing all these great things. And I think the biggest influence that he's had on my life, like his story, is just the fact. First off, he was very courageous. Like he didn't. To me, I felt like he didn't take no for an answer. Like
Yeah.
he saw the odds, but he didn't allow that to hold him back. That he kept on pursuing. He had perseverance, going after things that he believed what was right, fought for the things that he believed was right. And, that really inspired me as a man to really go after those things that I also have a passion for, and not to take no for an answer, but to continue to persevere. And another thing is the way he gave back to the community. That was
Absolutely.
also a big thing that I was like, man, he didn't live a selfish life. He was like, man, I want to give back to the community, especially in the realm of rights, fighting for just, civil rights and
Voters'
everything that,
rights and yeah.
yeah, voters' right, exactly. Yeah. And, that really left an amazing impression on me. Like, hey, man, I want to give back to the community like my great grandfather did. And,
Absolutely.
and yeah, I would say those things are some of the things that really left an impact on me.
And I didn't mention his name, but your grandfather's great great grandfather's name is Vernon Dahmer, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll have that so they can splice that into the beginning. All right.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the impact that he made on the local community in Hattiesburg and in South Mississippi. But the fact that he was able to accomplish that in Mississippi undoubtedly played a bigger role than just in Mississippi. It's Alabama, it's the whole South. We're fighting for the
Exactly.
same things. And, he did it knowing that his life would be on the line, but he
Mhm.
still did it for the greater good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And, taking, I always, anytime I hear the word no, I always ask myself, is it truly no, or is it, I don't want to be bothered? I don't
Yeah.
understand it. Or, because many times people will just reflexively tell you no, simply
Mhm.
to dismiss you. So anytime I hear no, I'm thinking truly in my mind, maybe not now, or, do you not truly understand the impact that we can have? So I'm always thinking about other routes when I hear the word no. I heard the word no coming out of medical school. I was not as
Yeah.
fortunate as you with the match. I heard the word no and it stung and it was scary, but
Mhm.
I knew that this is something I've been fighting for since I've been 15, 16 years old. So it's not time to give up on the dream now. But yeah,
Amen.
so, I'm really proud of the way that you've just kind of blazed this trail that you're on. And, let's talk about what's next for you, because the match process I know we're going to have a lot of medical students listening to this episode. So talk to us about the match process and kind of how that all goes about.
Yeah, man. So the match is a very unique, can be at times stressful process. It all starts. I mean, you could argue that it all starts from day one of medical school.
Yeah.
Everything that you're doing leads up to you forming a resume that goes on your application that then you then apply. But really, it kicks up at the beginning of fourth year. For ophthalmology, everything was earlier. So while my friends were kind of enjoying post step two vacation, I was working on applications. I was also doing away rotations because for those more competitive specialties, you have to go and actually present yourself to, 2 to 3 different residencies to make sure you at least have some good interviews. So I was kind of preparing for that as well. So, I started with the application, got that in. After that, focused on my ways. After that, it was interview season. So I was doing all kinds of interviews. I had about 15 interviews. I had about 19 offers, but for ophthalmology, they only allowed you to accept 15. So
Which
I
is
was very
amazing in
blessed.
itself.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was very blessed to get 15 interviews, and then from that, from like I would say November to December, it was just interviewing, pretty much 2 or 3 interviews per week, and
Virtually
then
or in
from
person?
oh, it was all virtual for me. However, some
Okay.
students they have a mixture of virtual and in person, which can be pretty stressful. But
Mhm.
for me, it was all virtual. Thankfully, it saved me some money, but I wasn't able to
Oh,
see
absolutely.
the residency itself, but they also had some some nights before the interview where you could interact with residents, so they made it where you could still get a good feel of the residency, which I really appreciated. But after all the interviews, man, it was match day for me, which is February 1st. Everyone else, it's March 17th. So I was able to find out where I matched a month and a half early. So that's been nice because now I know where I'm going. I can kind of chill out for a little bit and start looking for apartments, and just be kind of rooting on and supporting my colleagues as they get ready for their match day.
So talk to us about that moment, leading up to what'd you say, February the 2nd,
February 1st.
February 1st. So
Yeah.
talk to us about that day. If you're enjoying this episode, don't wait to the end to share it. Share it now. Share this with a friend or a colleague that you think might find value in this information. And then also make sure that you click and leave us a 5-star review and give us feedback because we really value your feedback and your input. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, man. So that day was very special. I mean, it's one of the most special days that I'll probably have at this point. Obviously, babies and marriage and whatnot when that comes. But man, it was, I woke up and obviously, I wasn't really anxious or nervous, but I was very excited, and I just had, just adrenaline pumping from the moment that I woke up. And the way my parents wanted to do it, they kind of wanted to do it as like a gender reveal. So they wanted the cameras, they wanted me to not know where I was going until then. So I had to like not look at my phone, which was very, very
Right.
difficult. And I
Yeah.
had all these calls and people texting me. So I was like, well, hopefully that's a good sign that I matched, because the program director, they will call you once you match. So I had a missed call from a number I wasn't really sure. It was an unknown caller. So I was like, maybe that was my director. So I got ready as quickly as I could, ran downstairs, we went outside, and scrolled through my email and found out that I matched at Iowa, University of Iowa, which I was super excited about. It was my number one choice, and my parents got it all on camera. And man, it was just like, man, well, you could argue 25 years of work, but like eight
Right.
years of just nonstop studying has finally paid off. And it was like, man, I'm gonna be an eye surgeon. I was like, that's like all glory to God. Like, I mean, he's been with me every step of the way. I've always put him first, and he's always shown up for me, he's always giving me favor. And man, I was just like in awe. It was just it was a very humbling moment, because I know not everyone on that day had great news. So I was just very grateful, really very grateful.
Like you mentioned, that's a moment you'll never forget. And I
Yeah.
want you to, appreciate that moment because at times, a couple of years down the road, a lot of people you're going
Yeah.
to run into, not necessarily you, but they're going to be complaining every day that they show up and walk into the hospital. So you have to really remember how blessed you are to be in this opportunity because many people, like you said, you're going into one of the more competitive residency programs and more competitive specialties in medicine, and you're very blessed to be there. So congrats again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So why ophthalmology? What were some of the deciding factors for you?
Yeah, yeah. So I pretty much I grew up around eye pathology. Both of my grandfathers had eye diseases. One being glaucoma, which is fairly well known in the Black community, especially. But
Mhm.
then it wasn't until second year medical school when I shadowed ophthalmology that spark really kind of clicked for me. And that weekend after I shadowed, I just researched the field. I researched the field like crazy. Came across the minority ophthalmology mentoring program, signed up for that as soon as applications released. And I kept an open mind. And in my prayers, I always told God, like, hey, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. But this is like an interest that I had. And I just looked for opportunities to just kind of see if ophthalmology was for me. And eventually, third year, I went to the conference down in New Orleans, the big ophthalmology conference. And man, I just fell in love. Everyone was just so welcoming, so warm. They said, hey, man, we love our jobs. Like we're 20, 30, 40 years in, and we still love what we do. And that alone was like, man, that's what I want. That's what I'm really like craving. And then after that, I just really love the pathology. I love the fact that I could do surgery in clinic. I found the eye just to be very fascinating. And it all just worked out, man, where it was just like a perfect fit for me. And the biggest thing also is that, man, I get to restore vision. Like there are people who walk into the clinic with cataracts and maybe, it's gotten really bad where it's really dense and they can't really see. We do a 15, 20-minute surgery. They walk out of the clinic already being able to see. But after the swelling goes down, they can really be able to have clear vision. And you see them the next day, they're like, wow, I can see again. And to me, man, I was like, that would be so fulfilling to do that for years and years and years and go across seas and do it. Do some mission work across seas. So yeah, that's
What about
definitely why
lifestyle?
ophthalmology.
Lifestyle, this is one of the 4 or 5 top lifestyle specialties. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, man. So, I'm a guy who definitely wants to have a family. I'm a guy who definitely wants to, I had a very present
Ladies,
father.
listen, ladies.
I had a very present father who took me to games, took me to practices, took me to the movies. I wanted to give my kids that same experience to be present. And, obviously want to be married, want to be a husband, maybe want to be a deacon in a church, want to be able to be a leader in my community. So I knew I didn't always want to be at the hospital or the clinic all the time. So ophthalmology really gives me that healthy balance of being able to, work and work hard and do well for myself and give back to patients, but also be able to go home, be at home, be present, be able to go enjoy different things in life and really have a whole, full, healthy life instead of just my balance being. And I know at different points in my career, it's going to be out of balance.
Sure.
But overall, the common thread that I really want in my career is that, hey, man, I can be present in both places.
No, that's awesome. And lifestyle, as we are starting to learn more and more. I mean, generations ago, it was, oh, my spouse is a doctor, my husband's a doctor, my father is a doctor, and everybody just kind of excused you from being present. But I say that's different in today's age where people are wanting to be not only a doctor and a family member, but a doctor and have other interests outside of the field of medicine. So, I think that's something that's very important, and you already have that in the forefront of your mind. So that's great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. So on Time Out with the Sports Doctor, this is your final timeout. So, like I said, you're a 4th-year medical student. You have risen to the top. Everybody, I'm sure you always have first-year students. Man, how did you do it? And because it's really the great unknown until you get there. Once you start the clinical years, you're like over halfway there. You're probably about 75% there once you can get through the basic sciences of first and second year. So just speak to the medical students or the young kids or a young professional who still has dreams and desires to go into medicine or to, they're still just trying to find themselves. So just kind of give them some encouraging words of, what living your dreams and pursuing your dreams can bring to you.
Yeah, man. Oh boy. If I could go back and talk to myself, I would say, man, like, you know, figure out what your calling is, and then don't listen to the voices that aren't talking to you to invest in you. Like,
Yeah,
obviously, when you have mentors who are seeking, their words are investments, but there are going to be people out there where their words are, they're trying to either discourage you, insult you. And I remember, man, getting online and looking at ophthalmology, seeing how competitive it is, looking at the school, like what you needed for scores, what you needed for research, and all that stuff is very relevant. But it's like, man, like sometimes I feel like we get so caught up in listening to what other people are doing, what other people are saying, we can get lost in like what, Donovan wants to do, or what whoever's listening, what you really want to do. And to me, I think that being able to block out the voices that aren't willing to invest in you, and actually go after what you desire and what you feel like God or whoever you believe in is calling you to do. I think that's the most important thing, because you're going to get a lot of opinions. You're going to get a lot of
Right.
people saying this and that. But man, and I know you experienced it. You had to kind of really say, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm going to block out what other people are telling me and go after it. And it paid off. And for me,
Yeah.
it also paid off, because I almost was like, man, I guess I'm not competitive enough for ophthalmology, but then I would have missed out on my calling. And it's like, no, like whatever you have a desire to do, whatever you are feeling like you're being led to, go after it, and don't give up until until reality really comes in and says, okay, you really can't do this. But oftentimes, you know, to me, I feel like oftentimes it works out exactly the way that it was meant to.
Yeah, absolutely. And many times we deny ourselves access by not even trying, by
Amen.
listening. Man, I have so many people that I've not necessarily mentees, but I hear their stories and I'm like, I know what you have, and I know that you're cut out to do this. However, you just let this person tell you don't apply because one piece of your application wasn't perfect. And now here you
Exactly.
are 2, 3, 4 years down the road, and you denied yourself access just by not trying. So I definitely want people to hear that never be the person who's on trial and the judge at the same time. All you can do is what you can do, control what you can control, and leave the rest to God.
Exactly, exactly. And one last thing, I didn't want to live my life by what ifs. Like I didn't want to wake up 10 or 20 years down the road and say, man, what if I would have actually gone for what I felt like God was calling me to? And I mean, being a doctor, no matter what you are, is great. Even if I would
Right.
ended up being an internal medicine doctor, that I probably would
Or
have loved
orthopedic
that.
surgeon, right?
Or the big surgery, exactly. I probably would have loved it. But then I would have been like, man, but like what if though? So I was like, I'm not living my life based off what ifs. I'm going after it. So I don't have any regrets at the end of my life. I said, hey, I fought past the fear, and I pushed through, and I was courageous like my great grandfather, and I went for it.
That's great. And one day we're gonna sit down and you're gonna have to teach me the visual fields, because I swore that I understood that, and then I took the test and I flipped it all around. I think I barely
Yeah,
passed the test, and I
yeah.
never even tried to go back and relearn it. So your strength is my weakness by far. So one day you have to sit down and teach it to me.
Definitely, definitely. Will do, will do.
Yeah,
It can be pretty
yeah.
tricky, but there's some tricks out there.
Absolutely. Hey, well, thank you for stopping back through to give us an update. We're all rooting for you here on the podcast. And, make sure, hey, I want you to share that video with us so we can use it during that week to
Oh,
promote
okay.
what you do.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do. We'll do.
Yeah. All right. And then tell people how they can follow along with your story and your journey through medicine.
Yeah, man. So I'm pretty big on Instagram. I kind of take breaks here and there, but you guys can follow me at D_Dahmer, Dahmer, and then 25. Or you can just type in Donavon Dahmer and you should be able to find me that way as well. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be on there, just kind of posting maybe some of my stuff, just and also life stuff as well. So yeah, you can check me out there.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. And that's a great platform, especially like you mentioned, eyes. People don't really know what they should be doing. Number one, they don't know the effects that diabetes and hypertension and things of that nature, how they affect the eyes and how they affect many organ systems in the body. So you really have a voice that you can use to help your community outside of just seeing them in your office. So make
Exactly.
sure you
Exactly.
utilize
Which is the
that.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, which is the
absolutely.
goal, man. Yeah,
All right, man.
yeah.
I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you, and keep doing your thing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Burgess.
All
Appreciate you.
right. Thank you for continuing to support this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't done so, subscribe so you continue to get the updated episodes. Until later, peace. Hey, time out with the sports doctor. Keep our head right in the game. We ain't never stopping. You are now tuned in. Trust you don't want to miss. This is where life, sports, and medicine.